Got a mic.
You got a mic?
Yeah. Congrats on the win, Pablo. You seem pretty pumped up at the end there. What was the emotion, I guess, coming out of this game, and what made it so special?
Yeah, I think we played really well last week in Vancouver. Didn't come away with anything. Again, we're now at home. There's a bit of pressure on us to perform well. We got, a couple teenagers out there, and you look across the field and you have probably one of the most experienced, most quality groups in the league. And the way they handled themselves, it wasn't always pretty, but they rolled up their sleeves and just, talk after the game. And the guys said, listen, we're all on the same page, even when it wasn't going our way. Then the other part too was the guys that came in, Sergi, Pablo, and in particular Morgan, just changed the landscape of the game. I think, when we get everyone back and healthy, we're going to be a completely different side. In the meantime, it's really supporting the group, knowing that we have quite a few guys out, and so the culmination of all that is what made me so emotional, because it's really easy to make excuses as to why you don't win games. And the one thing that I can tell you is that group in there won't ever make an excuse.
Thinking about the slogan for this club, winning together through development, I think about the guys like Gozo, Hezarkhani, Moisa there in this game making an impact. Is this kind of just like the quintessential statement game for that mission statement?
I think so. I think we've been really intentional, in particular when Jason came on board, and really being intentional about how we do that, bringing the guys up midweek, having them train with the guys. And in Gozo's case last year, we had an injury. He'd been training with us, and that's how he got his pop. So being really intentional about the development. And then the other part too is, I think there's a lot of credit that goes to the guys that are around these guys, because it's really easy as an ex-experienced player. Sometimes it was really easy to make excuses as to why we weren't playing as well, and point the finger at the younger guys. But a lot of credit has to go to guys like Jay Glad and Hoffa and everyone else that surrounds these guys, because they're the ones that look after them. They're the ones that guide them when the bullets are flying, right? So just really pleased as to how we're really doing what we say, which is winning together through development.
Hey, Pablo, congrats on the win. Just kind of piggybacking on what you talked a little bit on it, with this team being so young, what's more important right now in games like this, correcting mistakes or keeping the confidence to them?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, and I think the way that you correct mistakes is really, really important. The tone of voice, the setting. I think everything is always audience dependent, and so I think with young guys, there's a lot of one-on-one videos. There's a lot of tones in which we speak. So one of the things I always tell the guys is, like, listen, especially the young guys, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. There's no doubt about that. This is the first time you're at on the stage. The most important thing for me as a coach is having good reactions, not worrying about the mistakes. We'll deal with the mistakes after the game. Just get on to the next play and have good reactions. And I think today the guys did a really good job of getting on to the next play, again, against a really experienced group. And so that's the other part is, like, you got Rusnak, you got the Roldan brothers, you got Yamar and Reagan in the back. I mean, this thing is just shredded with experience. And so for these guys to be able to handle themselves, because even though I say those things, even though they have big guys around them, it's still daunting to go up against a Seattle team who's been together for the last 6 or 7 years and been winning trophies, right? And so to be able to do that at home in front of our fans with the group that we had, it just makes me really proud.
And my last question is, like, if we look back, at this game in 3 months from now, what do you think this night will say about this group, and especially about Eden Hezarkhani scoring his first goal today?
Yeah, I would say, one of the things that the guys said after the game is that we just have a ton of belief in the way we play, in the players around us, in the way we're set up, in the way we manage games. Game management has been a big topic. I think last year we waited till probably the middle of the season to really delve into that. We hit that early on in preseason. Managing games, it's not going to be pretty, but when we're in a low block, how do we make sure that we negate any opportunities? And so I would say, looking back, it'd be that the group is full of belief. We understand what our roles are, but more importantly, we believe that we're a great team, and we just got to go out and express ourselves.
Pablo, first half, Seattle had a lot of success going down your right side. The second half, there was about 20, 30 minutes where they really had you pinned in. What do you take from this game, and how do you improve on that, or is that kind of something you were expecting?
No, again, I think teams, and again, I think when you're going week to week, if there are a lot of tactical adjustments, it's going to be really difficult for our young players to grasp on, right? Where Seattle, an experienced group, the coach says, let's do this, and it's really easily interpreted. Because, again, it's not only the tactic, but it's also space and time and where your opponent is, right? And so experience lends itself to being able to do those things really, really quickly because you've seen it millions of times. Inexperienced players struggle with that. So the adjustment we made at halftime was making sure Aiden was always on the goal side of Nuhu, right? And that did a lot. That made it a little bit more predictable for Gozo to step wide. And then the other part too is when we're defending in the wide areas, Gozo is so athletic and energetic that at times he will sprint at the guy. But in defending, you want to sprint and then slow down so that you don't make the plays so easy for him. Like it's just a bull charging out of Cape, right? And so chop your feet. You're the most athletic, the fastest guy on our team. It doesn't matter if he goes left or right. You just got to hit the body and win the ball. And I think he did a much better job in the second half. So I think those things it's impossible to make those adjustments as the game's going because it's really detailed as to what we want to do. It's not just saying like just drop behind and do that. You got to move your feet. You got to defend the right way. So, but I think that lended itself to being in a low block a lot in the first half and a lot in the second half after our goal. But then when the subs came in, I think the game changed. And again, I think that's what Morgan's quality is top.
And then you're probably a little surprised, or are you surprised that the kids did so well, the younger players did so well again tonight? And then also any concerns that Rafa kind of had he was standing on his head quite a bit during the game? Yeah,
I don't know that he made a couple saves. I don't know that they were really, really dangerous with that in particular in the second half. I mean, he made that save. He made two big saves, right? One where the guys broke behind and he saved it with his arm, and the other one was in the dying minutes. What was your question?
Just about him, the kids playing well.
Yeah.
Rafa carrying.
Yeah, no, again, I think, and that's why I think it's like, the young guys are going to do well if they believe they have the guys around them that have their backs. And again, that's why I go to Rafa making those big saves as an example of like, hey, listen, don't worry about it. And he says it quite a bit, guys, just play, just express yourself. We got you back here. And so him and Jay Glad and the guys in the back, Juanma had a fantastic game as well on that left side. And it was a collective effort, but I think that, again, I think it's a really good performance to build on. And what wins do is it validates the processes that we have. That's all wins do. It's great in the moment, but more importantly, when we go back to work on Monday and we do these said things, it'll be done with a different type of mindset versus when you're not getting the results, you're always down things.
First MLS goal for Aiden. What has stood out about him, and what did it mean to get to see him score tonight?
Yeah, I think he's had an unbelievable preseason with us, and hasn't hit the back of the net in the preseason, but some of his actions, some of his plays were really, really good. And I think the one thing, defensively, he's still understanding concepts, but attacking-wise, he's dialed in. And then to show up in that spot and really execute the way he did, I couldn't be happier for him. He's a fantastic individual. He's going to be a top player in this league. And I think today opening his account is really huge, not only for himself, but also the group.
And y'all haven't lost to the Sounders here since 2012. What is it about this matchup in this building, in this arena? This stadium?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but I think both teams feel it. I think when history is extensive as far as the results go, we felt the pressure of making sure we won this game, and I'm sure Seattle felt, this is a tough place to come play, and both will drop seeds either of belief or of a little bit of doubt. So, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, the game can go either way. They had a lot of set pieces, and ball could bounce either way, but just love the way the guys hung in there and were gritty and in their resolve.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on the win.
Thank you, Manny.
On Phillips' pass, is that something that you've seen from him in training, or did that surprise you too?
No, I think one of the things that we talked about this year, I think last year we were very much into building in a really methodical, slow, east to west kind of way. One of the things we've definitely changed is being more vertical. In other words, to make our opponents not know exactly how we're going to go game to game. And when you have, Juanma on one flank and you have Gozo on the other, our outside center backs almost become playmakers from that position. And so I think the action was, I think Gozo checked and went, and those guys have been training together this week, so it's been good. But it was a well-executed ball from Philip, and it was a fantastic run from Goz. And the best thing about that play was the decision Gozo made, right? That to me says a lot about his growth as a younger player. But before, I think he tried to leather that when he had his teammate. And so that, for me, is the best aspect of that play. But it was really well done from Philip as well.
And then on Seattle's goal, do you think that was a communication deficit? Did they find a hole in the defense, or what did you see from it?
Yeah, no, we talked with Rafa, and obviously, he came over and he was livid with it. I think the guys made a change on their own in that shape, and we basically vacated the one spot that is really dangerous with corners where they're going to try to hit the frame, and they put a lot of numbers in there. It's the corner of the 6. It's the hardest one to step out from, so we usually have a guy in that position, but on that particular play we didn't. So we'll go back and review that, but that was definitely the mix-up.
And then, thank you, last one for me. I noticed you talking to Yamar at halftime after that, I'll just say challenge. The match got pretty physical, especially around Gozo and Ari. Do you feel that the temperature of the game was handled the way that you'd want it to, or what do you tell the guys in that type of situation?
No, I love dogfights. I love them, man. I love it. What I want is just a fair. If they're going to be in the cage, then just let them in the cage. You know what I mean? It just what isn't for any coach is that's not a foul, but that is, and I think that's any coach will tell you that's the frustrating part. So if you're going to put them in the UFC cage, put them in there. I'm all good with it. I'm all good with it. We got dogs in there. I'm good with that. But if you're not, and you're going to start calling fouls, then it's got to be fair for both teams.
Krishan, next. Do you have any questions?
I was just curious, what do you think the impact is for young fans, Utah youth players, to see someone like Zach Booth make his first home start tonight?
Yeah. I think the great thing is Zach grew up here in Utah and left, and then he came back. And I think he's a wonderful player, and he put in a great shift tonight. Plays for the team. I think he plays for the club. He plays for the state. He represents a lot of Utahns that come to the game, and I think it was obviously a really proud moment for him. But I think that when younger kids come to the stadium and they see these guys like all of them, Aiden and Gozo and Luka Moisa and Zach Booth, they're probably like 3 or 4 years older than they are, right? So I think that's where magic begins as a young kid, is when you begin to dream, and then you see your dream in the stadium become reality. And so I think these guys are really moving the needle as to how we can continue to get some great soccer here in Utah, which I think already exists, but the belief that one day I can represent RSL. Mm-hmm.
David?
You're talking about how well the young guys played tonight. I mean, what are the strengths of having young guys on a team like this?
I think the biggest thing with young guys is they're not jaded. They're not jaded from experiences. They don't know that they can get hurt. In other words, they don't know that, so they play free. And you saw a lot of that in the first half with Aiden and Gozo flicking balls and Luka finding passes. They're not thinking as much game management as they are just enjoying themselves. And that's one aspect of it. The other part is their physical capacity is through the roof. They're willing to run and run and run. And some of it might not be a great example of running, but when you make mistakes and you're willing to run, it helps. And so I think, with youth, surrounded by really good experienced players is like the perfect combinations, because you can get guys that are like those that are just going to run. You got Aiden, who's not scared to have someone on his back, and he's willing to turn and meg the guy and keep going. And so youth is beautiful. At times it's, for us older guys, it seems like it's a bit ignorant, but that's the beauty of youth, because we're all us older guys, we're all jaded.
Congrats on the win, Pablo. Left side seemed to have a lot of control of the ball. Juanma was a big piece of that. How do you feel like he played tonight?
Yeah, I thought he was exceptional. I think the goal that he set up for Aiden it's different gravy, man. So when we talk about like half space delivery or, from that angle, we're usually talking about hitting it maybe to the back post, but he saw a secondary run that he just picks out, and he does this all the time. And so when he's in that position, he can take you to the line. He can combine and go forward. He can cut inside and dribble. Like, I think having his experience, his physical capacity is also through the roof. But just, I think on both sides of the ball, he's really well balanced, understands the moments, but is always looking forward. And I think when we get Juan on one side and you get Gozo on the other, and you get some of our other guys up front, now I think we become a really, really dynamic attacking team. So I think he played great tonight.
Awesome. And then Ari, was that an ankle?
Unfortunately, it's an Achilles injury. The extent we don't know yet, but having spoken to him, he doesn't feel good about it, which is unfortunate because the young man has been waiting for this opportunity. Scored his goal tonight, and man, the universe is crazy, man. So sending him all kinds of positive energy. I was talking to him on the bench as the game was winding down, and he was just, he was in tears. So hopefully the news is better than we expect.
Pablo, congrats on the win. How would you rate the defensive effort in the last 15 minutes as you guys are trying to stop Seattle from not trying to tie the game?
Yeah, again, I'd say 10 out of 10 only because we didn't concede. There's a million ways to do it. We break down video quite a bit, and it really comes down to moments, right? So you're in a shape, and they got the shape, but then in that shape, you have to make plays. The pivots did a good job stealing a couple balls. Jay Glad, Sam, and Phil did a good job of dealing with balls in behind. Dom and Juanma did a good job of trying to seal the wide areas, and so it's a really collective effort. And what I like about that is, I'm not a guy that enjoys being in a low block. I get too much anxiety. However, you have to be calm in those moments. And what I really like about our team moving forward is that when we win the ball in the low block, we've got jets and we've got quality ahead of the ball to really hurt teams. And I think that's a new feature to our group that we didn't have last year, and one that we'll continue to work on.
And then next game, obviously, against Atlanta. Do you feel like this win changes your next approach going into next game, or game after game?
No, I think it's game after game. And like I said, I think we performed really well against Vancouver, and even talking to, Brian Smetzer after the game, he said, you guys, I think, got robbed of a point because I think you guys deserved it. And so I think it's really about building up performances. And like I said, results like tonight really validate the process. The guys understand what they're meant to be doing. But more important, it's about the belief in the group and the camaraderie in the group, and continuing to work hard to feel what we currently feel right now.
And then last question, obviously a lot of injuries. Luna, Olatunji, status on them, or where are we looking?
Yeah, they're both different. Victor had an eye injury. And again, those are things that nobody really knows. He's going to another doctor's visit on Wednesday, but he hasn't run since it happened, right? Because they want to keep his eye stable. It's kind of a crazy one. And then Diego just started working on the field this week, the moment that we can get him a couple minutes, we'll be able to do that, and we'll kind of push him a little bit. He's got a big year ahead of him, and he was fantastic in our last preseason game. So that's where those two are.
Giles?
Just one question from me, Pablo. With Juanma getting a goal contribution in his start and Aiden getting a goal going in, how confident are you with your new players and your new arrivals to make up the difference for these injuries that have been plaguing y'all early?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think tonight, again, and I look back at that game and the amount, there's a couple in the first half where we were really, really good opportunities on goal. And then in the second half, there was also probably two or three, Morgan's chance, and, Serge had a really good chance. And those are on another day, I think those are in the back of the net. So I just feel really good about the whole group, who steps in and plays. I think with the young guys displaying their goods tonight, I think we're going to be all right. And we just got to keep pushing and making sure that we hold our standard. But I think again against this team tonight, I wouldn't have picked Aiden scoring a goal on the bingo card. That's just not. That's just a really tough ask, right? But it hit, and so now he's playing with a different set of beliefs, as is probably Serge, because he got the opportunity, in Morgan. And so the more we can get all these guys up to speed and playing together, I think the likelihood is we're going to score some goals.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.